What do you do when life isn't fair? You could complain, throw a tantrum, or you could accept it and move forward. That's what the Stoics teach us. In today's episode, we're going to talk about why the Stoics never needed fairness to succeed. In fact, they thrived precisely because they didn't need it. Marcus Aurelius says, "When you rise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." He was not saying this because his life was fair. His life was anything but easy. It's becoming emperor during Rome's war and disease chaos. He didn't complain, he just got to work. He said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." Epictetus was born a slave. His father was a Greek and his mother was African. But even after enduring a brutal childhood, he didn't complain. Instead, he said, "It's impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." He taught some of the most powerful men in ancient Rome, including the Emperor Hadrian. But even he didn't escape suffering. In one particularly brutal winter, he lost both his wife and his daughter to the same disease. But Epicurus didn't despair. Instead, he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." He continued to teach, to write, and to seek wisdom until the emperor banished him from Rome. Even then, he didn't complain. He simply picked up and moved somewhere else and continued teaching. Seneca also had a rough childhood. His father abandoned his mother and him, leaving them destitute. But Seneca didn't complain. He became immensely successful as an orator and a statesman. He was even appointed by the Emperor Nero as his advisor, but Nero soon turned against Seneca, accusing him of plotting against him. Seneca was forced to take his own life. But even then, he didn't complain. He wrote, "One must endure whatever fortune disponer, and whatever the soul can bear up under, the mind can also bear up under." These are just a few examples of the many unfair things that happened to the Stoics. But that's precisely what makes their story so inspiring. They didn't complain or make excuses. They simply accepted their fate and moved forward. But why didn't the Stoics complain? Why didn't they make excuses? The answer, according to the Stoics, is simple. If something is in our control, it is up to us to make the best of it. If we choose to complain or make excuses, then we have only ourselves to blame when things don't go our way. But if we accept what has happened and move forward, then we are in control of our lives. We may not be able to change what has happened, but we can change how we respond to it. Of course, this is easier said than done. It takes strength and resilience to accept our fate and move forward. That's what the Stoics were all about. They weren't born strong, but they became strong through their actions. They knew that complaining or making excuses wouldn't make things better. So they focused on what they could control, their thoughts, and their actions. This is why the Stoics never needed fairness to succeed. They knew that fairness wasn't necessary for success. In fact, they knew that fairness could often be an obstacle to success. When we focus on fairness, we are focusing on what is not in our control. We are focusing on the past. The Stoics, however, were focused on the present moment. They knew that the only thing they could control was their attitude and their actions in the present moment. And so that's where they focused their energy. This is why the Stoics were able to succeed in such different and difficult circumstances. They weren't relying on luck or chance. They were relying on their own strength and resilience. This is something that we can all learn from the Stoics. No matter what situation we find ourselves in, we always have the choice of how to respond. We can choose to complain and make excuses, or we can choose to accept the situation and move forward. The Stoics knew that the best revenge was to simply move forward. They knew that complaining or making excuses would only hold them back. And so, they focused on what they could control, their thoughts and their actions. This is how they achieved success despite the many obstacles in their path. This is the way of the Stoic. Please subscribe for more awesome videos coming up.